Perhaps through the careful study of human history, or maybe even just a scrutinizing eye on our current reality, those folks in the majority authority will soon see what it's like being someone like me. Maybe, just maybe, when they're stopped by the police and asked for ID for being on their own neighborhood streets, maybe if they be subjected to being suspected and consistently labeled as being aggressive, the objective truth can soon be seen. Maybe if they were only guilty of mere possession, yet fled when the officer checked them and searched their vehicle for weapons, then got shot in the back while fleeing, they could finally see what it's like to be deprived of being a live human being. Perhaps if they had their necks knelt on for 9 whole minutes plus 30 seconds, they'd subjectively reckon with the objective proof that the truth is rooted beneath the boots of the racist and ruthless. Perhaps your lives, nay, I say all lives will matter after all the school shooters finish shooting. Maybe one day they'll get it when they become empathetic enough to view who they may have seen as conquered people as the victims of their ancestors' monstrous evils. I say maybe one day they'll understand what it means to be oppressed instead of being the oppressor. In their DNA, they possess embedded stressors, then be treated like guinea pigs for testing modern medicines. Beaten, brutalized, forced to serve in silence, and expected to satisfy the sexual preferences of sexual predators. To have their women bear the burden of wet nursing while their own babies' tummies were hurting. Imagine if a palm-colored passenger was asked to provide identification, though she was physically placed on the passenger side. Can you hear that conversation? The utter contradiction. Crying without hesitation and explanation after explanation, falling on deaf ears and facing an uncaring melanated face, made to feel violated and unsafe, while being yanked, jostled, and manipulated, dazed, tased, and sprayed in the face with mace, all because she was in the car looking suspicious when the officer illegally ran her homie's plates. Or what if she was the subject of a traffic stop? One summer day while failing to signal a lane change, then after she became irritated with the situation, faced the business end of a taser, arrested, jailed, and later found asphyxiated in her jail cell hanging. No accountability for her death after an intense investigation. Do you see the point I'm making? Like, what if every time a palm-colored brother stood upright for his rights, he was assassinated? What if this nation had a centuries-old history of palm people's enslavement and no real civil rights legislation? Would that uncomplicate it? Would that generate enough sympathy or some more appreciation for the case for reparations? Maybe if we packed them all into a few city blocks, gave them a head start, then stopped it, watched and listened as the kids raised impoverished created a new art form that took the world by storm. But first we mocked it, then tried to stop it, then used our corporate might to co-opt it for record profits, all while we use its influence to target the same kids who created it in an effort to prop up our markets. Run that back. What if the kids who are black didn't have the targets on their backs? What if the entire continent of Africa was the dominant society to thrive throughout time? What if those sovereign nations were to unite and to organize their resources and select the countries to supply and which to deprive? What if those so-called settlers starved that initial visit and succumbed to the indigenous tribes? What if polytheism defeated monotheistic ideas and more believers believed that Amun-Ra would provide more than Jesus Christ? What if Africans were the ones who colonized the globe and in their travails they tossed Europeans over the sides of their ships and unknown millions of them died? What if there was no imperialism, capitalism, or other methods of oppression? What if someone other than the president had the audacious ability to determine whether or not another country has nuclear weapons? What if we learned to rig elections? What if we were obsessed with oppression and making them feel our superiority while they were relegated to something much lesser? What if for 400 years we appeared to have 187 on our minds 24/7, 365? What if we stole the land and resources of 1,000 tribes, depriving them of their head rights? What if we married those Osage wives for the inheritance of their oil rights? What if we bombed Wall Street because its business was thriving, then set the white world on fire and called it a race riot because of our own malicious violence? Matter of fact, What if blacks became ireful that Palm people acquired a neighborhood on Manhattan Island, and because it was so vibrant, we devised a strategy that not only deprived them of their rights and property, but dispersed the community in its entirety, then built a central park over the site to hide the crime? What will it take for them to finally see our plight and recognize that we already understand their dastardly desires?